Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and as always, I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and it's kind of a slow news week for TNA. Gotta talk about it though. Got stuff to talk about. I think we came back down to earth a little bit on Impact this week, with and I'm gonna talk about the Impact show. I thought it was a good show, so I'm not gonna come on and bury it, but I think the look and the feel for this week's Impact was very much reminiscent of what we used to see on the Impact Wrestling era. It was basically the Impact Wrestling era with a TNA logo, is what it looked like to me. And that's not a great thing. It's not like exactly a bad thing. Like there was some improvements, but we were kind of back down to earth a little bit because we ran that same venue with Impact a couple times before. The crowd was still good. The crowd looked nice, but yeah, I think the TNA Impact or TNA Wrestling era is starting to look a lot like the Impact Wrestling era with just some new logos and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some free agency. And that's going to be about it. Like there's not really much going on in the world of Impact this week. It was kind of a slow news week for Impact. So also I do want to I want to apologize if I'm a bit sluggish on this episode, because I am currently fasting. I have not had any food since I watched Impact on Thursday night. And I watched it at about 8 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So that was, and we're now Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So a swig of coffee with whole milk for the working man. I got some whole milk so I wait and get some calories in my body. So why am I fasting? Because your boy decided to let his diet get out of control. So I'm trying to shock my system back up. So I'm doing a basically like a liquid fast. And I'm going to do it until tomorrow, until Sunday, to where I'll eat on Sunday. But yesterday, I had no food. All I had was coffee, lots of water, sugar-free Gatorade. Just getting my electrolytes in but no sugar. Can't have any sugar whatsoever. And for dinner, I had a bowl of bone broth. So it was basically like 2 cups of bone broth. And I'm going to continue that today. I'm going to have bone broth for lunch and bone broth for dinner. And then, and we'll see how I do on Sunday. I'm hoping to kind of go until Sunday at dinner, but I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. And plus today I have a hike to be on today too. So yesterday was fine though. Like I felt great the whole day. I started to feel a bit sluggish last night. And then when I woke up this morning, I didn't have a lot of energy. So that's why I'm gonna be pounding some coffee, and hopefully that doesn't give me too much brain fog. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's get into the show. Man, so what I want to talk about first is Dave Meltzer had some more updates in his Wrestling Observer this week regarding Hard to Kill. Hard to Kill, the same pay-per-view that we were all kind of making fun of, calling it Hard to Fill. And boy, did we eat shit on that one. And we also were making fun of the card because the card was, outside of the Hammerstone Alexander match, it was very much a Impact Wrestling card. There wasn't really much to it. I mean, there was the additions of the Grizzly Young Vets and Xia Brookside, but like there wasn't really much to that card. Like the main event, Alex Shelley and Moose, was not a marquee main event. Nothing against those guys, but that wasn't really like anything out of the ordinary. That could have been a very much a TNA Plus match, which spoiler, that's going to be soon, but it could have very well been a TNA Plus match, and it didn't really scream like a marquee pay-per-view match, which is pretty wild. But it last week we talked about it on here that there was an update, or that Dave had another update that the late buys for the pay-per-view were doing great. So he had originally reported that it was looking like they had did, like, so 2 weeks ago he originally reported that they were looking like they were doing in the around 11,000 buys total, right? I think that was the number that we talked about 2 weeks ago. And then last week, that number jumps up to where he's predicting it was like 8,900 on no, it was like 8,900 on cable, and like upwards of 24,000 on when you add in the streaming, right? I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So we're big time. And then it jumped up to 11,000 on cable, and which would have been taking it up into, higher up as you start climbing up a little bit more. And well, this week in the Observer, he's saying that it was 12,000 on cable. So we're talking 2 weeks after, people still buying this pay-per-view. So the word of mouth is working. So 2 weeks after, people are still buying this pay-per-view. So 12,000 on pay-per-view. And we're looking at like around, he's estimating here. It's all an estimate because you don't really get the actual number for streaming buys, but he's doing it using estimates based off of similar type programming, and the numbers that he gets from other folks. So the number could be higher or it could be lower, but he's predicting that we're looking at around 28,000. I think when it's all said and done, we might get to around 30,000 buys for this pay-per-view, and that puts him right in line with what they were doing on Spike. That was one of the big issues with TNA back in the day, is they had well over 1 million, sometimes 2 million viewers a week on Spike, and they could not translate any of that into business. They couldn't get people to buy the pay-per-views. But now we're looking at them getting a fraction of the audience on Access, and I'm only going to talk about Access because we don't really know the numbers for YouTube and Impact TNA Plus, or what they're, we don't really get international numbers and stuff like that. So let's just talk about Access. So, they're getting, in and around 100,000 live viewers a week. And now that's, what, not even 10% of what they used to do on Spike, but they're getting around the same pay-per-view numbers now. And this is not the first time this has happened. This has been like we've had several Slammiversaries the last couple of years that have been getting up to this level, Bound for Glory, down like into the teens, low 20s. And now this one, we're getting up to about 30,000 pay-per-view buys. That's pretty damn good, especially when you consider the budget that they're working with is significantly smaller than what they had in the Spike days. It's significantly smaller. And I think the pay-per-view price is higher, at least domestically. Now, I know some people are doing the math, $40 times 30,000. They're doing the math on that. But in a lot of international markets, the pay-per-view is only $20. So there's no real way to factor, like you don't know which markets are buying which, right? Is the 30,000, mostly domestic? Probably, but they do have a lot of people around the world that like to watch that show because they're on in so many different countries. They're very much competitive with AEW with how many different countries they're in, and probably ahead of them in some of the other smaller markets and smaller territories around the world. So this is great. It's great news. It's great news for TNA. Great news. I was super worried about about Hard to Kill. I was hoping that it would do well, and it exceeded every one of my expectations. So, good news for TNA. I think Hard to Kill ultimately is going to be looked back on as a complete home run. Now, some people will debate the quality of the show. I happen to really enjoy the show. It was everything that I was looking for. But that's what they did is the stuff that I personally like Josh Alexander versus Hammerstone, which was my match of the night. Like that's like the perfect wrestling match for a guy like me, like a big jacked up steroid freak and a amazing technical wrestler. And both of them incorporating a bit of a Japanese strong style into the match. It was like Bret Hart versus Lex Luger if Lex Luger were better, and Lex Luger was very good, by the way. And I'm not I love Lex Luger. So, but if Lex Luger had more of a modern style and was trained a bit better, then that's what we would have gotten. And I absolutely love the match. So. That pay-per-view worked for me. It didn't work for some others, and that's okay. For folks that don't really watch TNA, they kind of and they went into it with a hyperly critical lens, looking to tear it down, because they want to keep reaffirming their already existing beliefs that this sucks and they shouldn't be wasting their time on it. They probably went into that and didn't like it, and I've heard that from some people, and that's okay. Like there's enough wrestling out there for everybody. So if we don't, sorry, you're not needed. So continue enjoying what you enjoy. That's fine. Continue enjoying, Adam Cole doing his devil storyline and not wrestling. Good for you. Okay. Also, we do have a little bit of news. It broke after TNA Impact was over, and it kind of spoils the show. So if you want to wait for my recap to talk about this, that's fine. I'll get to that in a little bit. But if you're watching this or if you're listening to this on Patreon, you've probably already seen the show, so you know that this is a recap show. So before we get to the recap, we got two new matches announced for No Surrender. It looks like the main event is going to be a rematch of Moose versus Alex Shelley. And this was set up in a backstage segment. Alex was in the trios match last week. He got the victory over Brian Myers. So the system's already losing matches, but that's neither here nor there. But he challenged Moose, and to which it's been accepted, and they were going to wrestle at No Surrender. I hope that the match was a little bit better than what we saw at Hard to Kill. Although I did enjoy the match, I did feel like it was a bit slow, and I think they need to hit this one out of the park, because I think both of these guys can go, and I think they can do a more up-tempo, more exciting match, as opposed to the very cerebral, methodical match. Alex Shelley working a body part. Like, we've already seen that match, so maybe we could try to do something different on this one. I think that'd be good for these two guys, and that would raise their stock a little bit. But the rematch clause, I could take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter to me. It works if it's a match that I'm really, really excited to see, then I'm cool with it. And if it's not, then I don't care about it. I don't care if they use it or not. And in this case, like, I'm not that excited to see this rematch. I feel, unless they're going to do something different, then I'll watch. Unless they're going to add a different element to the match, then I'll watch. But if it's just a straight up wrestling match that we've already seen, it's like, okay, I don't really care. And I'll be honest, I didn't really care about the match going into Hard to Kill. Like, it was just a match to me. This isn't like a dream match scenario. It's like, we could see this match whenever. So they're doing it on their first TNA Plus show of the TNA Plus era and the Endeavor era. They're going to headline with a rematch from Hard to Kill. And I'm curious to see how it will do. I'm not looking at ticket sales right now because it's mostly general admission. I get the feeling they will somehow fill that building up, the Ilario Center, which is what they did 2 years ago when they were back there. It looked very dire, and then I think a lot of the ground crew just started hitting the streets and slinging tickets and getting people in and giving people free tickets. So they're going to fill up the Ilario Center. Come hell or high water. So I'm not worried about that. But I just don't see the Moose versus Shelley a rematch. It's very paint by numbers the way they booked it. And I just don't see that being very exciting for people and getting people talking and getting people to subscribe to TNA Plus. I just don't. So hopefully they add something unique to the story, because right now the story is just not that interesting to me. But we'll see. I mean, maybe it'll be a good match. Hopefully it will. And then the next match is Giselle Shaw versus Jordan Grace. Giselle, she won the Ultimate X match at Hard to Kill, so naturally she's cashing in her X. Can we get rid of the cash in stuff? so I don't know. I'm kind of over it because every company's doing it now. Like, New Japan's doing it. AEW started doing it, right? Which surprised me because they, this was, at the end of 2023, they started getting in on the tropes. And now Impact is doing it, like, overdoing it at this point. The cash in type of stuff, to where Moose won the Feast or Fired, right? And so they had the Feast or Fired briefcases. So three of those are three separate cash-in stories, right? And then you had the Bound for Glory Gauntlet or whatever they call it, and Jordan Grace won that, so she has now a cash-in. And then so that's what, three. So now we're talking four cash-in stories going on, and then the fifth one being Giselle Shaw winning Ultimate X, and now she's carrying around this fucking X and she's cashing it in. I think I'm over the cash-in stuff. It's like you're just the number one contender, and then the promoter gets to book it. You don't get to book it, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of over all that stuff, but and Giselle has not. They're heating her up this year, but she's been pretty much a loser her entire run here. And what I mean by a loser, I don't mean that in like a derogatory sense. Like she's lost probably 85% of her matches. And I'm not going to go in cage match to look that up, so somebody probably will go do that and correct me. But they're trying to heat her up now. She got the Ultimate X, and we'll see. We'll see if anybody cares. She did beat down Trinity last week, and they're setting up the big tag match for next week with Jordan Grace and Trinity. Even though Trinity's on WWE TV now, they're setting that big storyline up, or that big tag matchup. Honestly, I would have done that one this week with Jordan coming off of the Royal Rumble. People were still talking about her all week, and now we're going to wait till next week to actually get her to wrestle a match. I don't know. That would have been my main event for this week. Was Jordan and Trinity, in the tag match, and they decided to wait a week, and I don't understand. Like maybe they have some metrics that they know of that I just don't know of. But it just seems to me that by next week, people are already going to forget that Jordan Grace was on the Royal Rumble, because so many things have happened since then. I don't think anybody's going to be talking about it next week. I know that TNA is going to be hitting their social media and tweeting out the videos and tweeting out all the stuff, reminding people that they did have somebody at the Royal Rumble that lasted, whatever it was, 15 minutes. But I think they should have struck while the iron was hot and had that match this week, especially considering that Naomi is in WWE now, and Naomi was just on WWE TV. They really should have hit that this week, but instead they decided to wait a week. So, it's I don't know. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me. But we will see how well it does. We'll see how well it does. So, I don't know. I haven't gotten the ratings for this week yet. Gerard, I see you in the chat. Gerard, if the ratings pop up with Jedi Goodman or somebody, could you let me know if they pop up while we're on the show here? Because I did not see them pop up. So, and Gerard, I'm gonna get to your comment. I'm actually saving Cody versus the Cody stuff for the end of the show. That way our TNA fans can get their fill. So we have two matches announced for No Surrender, double main event, Moose and Alex Shelley, and then we have Giselle Shaw and Jordan Grace, and we'll see if that adds any subs, which I don't know. Those don't seem like big matches to me, but who knows, man? Who knows what people are into these days? Also, it was announced earlier this week, and I'm actually going to do a share screen on this deal because I think this is pretty cool, and this could be a significant thing for free agency in pro wrestling. This is from one Rikishi Fatu. It says Jacob Fatu had been the baddest talented indie worker on the scene. It's time. Who will sign him? WWE or AEW? He's been ready. Samoan Dynasty, and then there he is. The Jacob Fatu. He is the big free agent. Out there, his MLW contract has expired, or he's left the company, or whatever it is. I think it was announced that it expired, so he wasn't like released or anything. TNA, this is the guy, right? And there's two more talents that are out there that I'm gonna talk about them next. But Jacob Fatu, that's your guy. Like, if you want to make a big splash, if you want people to take notice, and you want somebody that just isn't resting on their laurels, like that's coming off of a WWE run, to where your show now looks like WWE main event, where your show looks like a third tier WWE, this is the guy you go for. Jacob Fatu. He's legitimately one of the best in the world. I know, other people do crazier moves and other people do more kickouts and they slap the thigh more and they do all this stuff. But this guy makes you fucking notice. He's one of the most talented wrestlers I've ever seen. Um, and of all the Samoan wrestlers, he's like right up there with all of them as far as like what he can do in the ring. He's just a very believable guy. He can do the big moves to the outside, all the flying moves. He can do all the power moves. His shit looks good. He has great matches. Like this is the motherfucker you bring in right here. You missed on Will Ospreay. You missed on CM Punk. You went after some other guys and girls, and you couldn't get them. Honestly, I think this is more in line with the type of people that they should be going for, rather than some of those overpriced people. Like, look, okay, CM Punk would have been a game changer for this company. I'm not going to say that. Will Ospreay would have been awesome, but I don't think that he would have done significant business for TNA. He needed to be in one of those bigger promotions because the way they're able to promote him, I think he'll do business for them. I just don't think that he would have done significant business for TNA, and I think that's fair. Okay, but Fatu, God, this guy is awesome. And he's been toiling in MLW for a long time. They just haven't had the resources to be able to get much out of him. Even though he's produced some high quality segments and matches and all this, like the Hammerstone matches and the matches that he had with Tom Lawler back in the day, he was absolutely like he is absolutely amazing. And I've seen this guy in person wrestling on the Indies in San Francisco. He is by far like that. Like he would be my number 2 priority of all the free agents that are out there right now. And I think they need to make a big push to get this guy. Like this is the play. This is what gets people noticed. This is what, makes people think that you're serious and that you're not just looking for fired WWE talents. Because right now that's kind of what it seems like. They're just hoping for people to get fired from WWE. That way they can, get small bumps on their YouTube channel. Right. But this guy is a guy. Like he's a dude, like a legit dude. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about Fatu. He's got a bit of a past. He's got, criminal record. Who cares? Right. As long as he's not still committing those crimes, we good. Let's bring this dude in. Absolutely. Jacob Fatu, free agent. They need to do whatever they can to sign this guy. People are saying either AEW or WWE. I think TNA needs to throw their fucking names in the hat. Big time. Come in strong with an offer for this guy. Go for it. Roll the dice. Absolutely. And then still my top priority for TNA, and I actually think Fatu is a better wrestler than this guy, but I think this guy has a bit more star power, and that's Hammerstone. He's still a free agent. I thought by now we would be having conversations about Hammerstone being a signed talent somewhere. And he's still not signed anywhere. And he has been all over his social media, talking about TNA, tweeting out pictures of when he was in TNA and asking his audience, his followers, if he should sign with TNA. And everybody's like one by one, like, yes, yes, yes. I do know that that WWE is a little bit interested in Hammerstone, but probably not that interested because he's still not there. If they really wanted him, he would be there. I don't think AEW is going to go for him, although there is a rumor out there that MJF is trying to get him and Holiday in, and maybe that's what he's trying to do, is bide his time for the MJF for his injury to be over, for him to be all healed up, and whenever he returns, because maybe that's what he's looking for, to wait until MJF comes back so he can so MJF can have his dynasty versus the undisputed, whatever they call Undisputed Kingdom. And maybe that's what this whole thing's about. But I don't know if that's not the case. And if he's looking to be signed, if he's looking to get a contract somewhere, TNA needs to come in strong for this guy. Like, could you imagine if they brought in both Hammerstone and Fatu? I mean, we're talking about, complete overhaul of the main event division by just adding 2 players that aren't your typical players. They're not like fireds from AEW and WWE. They're not, former TNA guys who are past their prime. Like, these are 2 dudes in their prime that don't have like overexposure. When they come onto your TV, they're going to be fresh faces, and I think that's so underrated. People love to bring in these like fucking Dango and Khan and all these losers because they're more famous, but it doesn't add anything to the show. They don't. It's like, oh yeah, I used to see that guy in WWE, and now my attention's here. Instead of bringing in somebody new, somebody fresh, somebody that isn't famous, and then learning about them, teaching your audience about this person. I think that's an underrated element to wrestling that we're just not getting right now, and for the most part in TNA, we're not getting anything new. We're recycling. That's what, like, look at what we saw this week on Impact. We saw some like just recycled talents that have been around for a long time, veteran talents, late 30s, early 40s, on into their 50s, and not really, many friends other than the main event, obviously, Ace and Bay versus the Grizzly Young Vets. I thought that was great, and I'll get to that. But I think this is the type of stuff. These are the type of people they need to be going for, right? Lock these guys in. But yeah, Hammerstone's still out there, and I think it's a shame. I think Hammerstone should be brought in. I would put him right in there with the system, and have him standing next to Moose, right, in the system. And you could, I'm not saying steal from WWE a storyline, but I mean the Evolution storyline is right there. It's a perfect story. It's happened time and time again, and it always works. You have Hammerstone standing next to Moose, two jacked up dudes, two alphas, and eventually one turns on the other, and now you got a ready-made storyline. I think that's the play. That's where you go. Will they do it? I don't know. Tama Tonga's still out there. He's officially a free agent now. I haven't heard anything to see if he's going to be coming in or not, or what his plans are, or if he even has any plans. Maybe he's going to take some time off. He's been doing Japan for a long time, so we'll see on him. But Kamille Brickhouse, former NWA champion, she still remains unsigned. People expect her to go to WWE. She was visiting AEW recently, and this is another person that I think is tailor-made for TNA. And with all of the people that they've lost recently, in that knockouts division, it's the weakest it's ever been, despite the fact that Jordynne Grace just brought a lot of attention to it, and there's no way to pay it off because they don't really have anybody. They don't really have any stars in that division right now. They have some good wrestlers, but they're not deep in star power. And I think that Kamille has this presence about her to where she has this presence and aura to where she could be a star. And that you could have a big pay-per-view match that would be a main event with Kamille and Jordynne Grace. Like, you put them on a poster, people are going to take notice. And now Jordynne Grace has got a little bit more of a following because of her Royal Rumble return. I'm sure people she's got more followers on Instagram and Twitter because of that, right? And TikTok and whatever the fuck. So I think that's the move. So there's four talents right there. Tama Tonga being 4 of 4. He would be my last priority because he is a guy that's 40 and that's been around. A lot of hardcores don't really like him, but he was in New Japan for a long time, and his last match that he had with Shingo was amazing. And maybe that's all credit to Shingo, but fuck it, it was awesome. Tama was a very big part of that match. So, they could really turn this thing around if they got those people in. Also for No Surrender, it looks like we're going to get Mustafa Ali versus Chris Sabin, and I'm here for that match. And I think they probably put the title on Ali. I think they do. If they end up signing, I think they do. Ali's got some momentum. He's people are into him right now. He's doing all the indies. He's selling some tickets, so I think they do. And then before he leaves, they flip it back. I don't think that he's in for the long haul. I think he's just doing his tour right now, and he's hoping that eventually he gets signed by AEW. He's not going back to WWE. I don't think. Because even when Triple H took over, he was very much trying to get out of there. He very much didn't want to be there anymore. So, yeah, I think they haven't announced that match, but that's what they teased it this week. So I get the feeling that's where we're going. Oh man. So, yeah, we have this TNA Impact show to talk about, and it was a good show, and I talked about it at the beginning of this episode. It was a good show, but man, it really did feel like the Impact Wrestling era was back. It's like Impact Wrestling era with a TNA logo. That's it. That's very much what it's like. The lighting, because the Vegas crowd was lit very well, and that was because it was like a nicer venue, and it was a bigger crowd, and so they lit it, quite well. But this one was like, they had pockets of the arena that were just blacked out and dark, and they turned the lights off because they didn't want to see that nobody was there. The hard cam side was, looked kind of nice, but even then, like you could tell that some of the seats were a little bit empty, and the bleachers did not go up very high like they did in Hard to Kill. So, um, yeah, the look and the feel and the production, it looked like we were kind of like almost back in the Impact Wrestling era. But other than that, like what we saw was pretty good. We saw some pretty good storyline progression, but not anything that I think is gonna get people talking. Like there's no significantly like bombshell type storyline. Like we're seeing in some of the other promotions. It's very paint by number storytelling right now, like very basic stuff. That's not really getting anybody excited and getting anybody talking about anything right now. We could see that change soon, but right now, like these Orlando tapings, once I saw the spoilers, I was like, wow, this is going to be a rough month of TV. And rough meaning like, I think the Vegas shows got people talking, got people excited. There was cool stuff happening. They had some big stars from New Japan come in. And now we're back to earth here. We're back to normal now. And they need to really step up some of their storylines if they're going to get people talking. But so the show opened up. You had Nick Nemeth, big star in the company by far at this point. And he's like one of the reasons because of how great he's been doing on their YouTube with his YouTube numbers. Like he's got multiple videos over 1 million views at this point. And his match from Vegas from last week was Zachary Wentz. They put the full match on YouTube and it like tripled the Okada match. So if you're wondering why they keep getting all these scrap heap guys, that's why they like those numbers and they get significant revenue from their YouTube channel. So, but opening match was Nick Nemeth. He defeated Trey Miguel. Good opening match. I think I like these two guys in the ring. I think that last week's his match was really good too with Zachary Wentz. Of course they did a lot of outside interference and gimmicks, and Zach ended up getting kicked out of the arena by the referee. And then this allowed Miguel to hit a meteor for a 2 count. Miguel called for a super kick, but as he went in, Nemeth hit one of his own and got the pin. That's probably the first time since Shawn Michaels used it that someone landed a single super kick and was able to pin somebody. And that's not even Nemeth's finisher. That's just one of his transition moves. Because that's what the super kick is nowadays. It's a transition move. So he didn't even hit the God, what is the name of his new finish? It used to be the zigzag. He's got I can't remember what the name of it is. But yeah, he hits the super kick, gets the victory, and then as he's going up the ramp, Steve Macklin came out and took out Nemeth, offering some payback from the results of the brawl the last 2 weeks actually. And then the Rascals teamed up with him, super kicking Nemeth in Macklin's direction. Macklin then nailed Nemeth with the KIA as fans booed. I like this feud, and that's what our friend here Josiah says in the Observer. I think they're doing a very good job of this feud. They can't do it at No Surrender. They can't culminate it there. So maybe they go to Windsor the next month. And then maybe that's like a number 1 contenders match. And then the winner would go on to face Moose. So I think we're getting Moose versus Nemeth at Rebellion. I think that's what they're going to do. But yeah, I like it. They can't do it in No Surrender because Nemeth is booked in Japan. He's taking on Finley and out there. So it'd be kind of cool to see, TNA send Macklin out there to do a storyline, just much like they did with Nemeth in Puerto Rico recently. So, but Macklin is he never got really overexposed on WWE TV, and he's very much like nobody remembers him as Steve Cutler. He's one of us now. So good for him. And then Dina was backstage with Khan, and Khan interrupted his promo saying the design was dead. And it was time to remind the world that he's who the baddest man in the TNA is. Ugh, man, that was tough. There's literally nothing interesting about Big Khan. Like there is no reason to watch Khan wrestle. Like, like there's like Khan could be in a wrestling match across the street from my house for free, and I wouldn't go. That's how much he sucks. Dobby is in the chat. He said Nemeth's finishing move is called the Danger Zone, but it should be the knick-knack. Yeah, I agree with you there. And then he also says he really likes the new Macklin Rascals faction. I like this crew too. It's very like they don't really have anything in common. And I was joking about it on Twitter, but I kind of would like to see it. I'd like to see them trying to explain to Macklin what marijuana is, because like Macklin feels like a guy that's never even heard of it, despite the fact that the green medicine is very popular in the Marine Corps. A lot of guys get in trouble for that, but it just looks like, look like Macklin just wouldn't know anything about it, which is kind of funny to me. But yeah, next we go to the Decay. They defeated a couple job ladies, beat the shit out of them. Rosemary is biting and choking, all kinds of stuff. Not really much to the match, total squash. MK Ultra were shown in the back watching the match closely, and Kelly and Slamovich claimed they wanted the rematch and no surrender. But Jody Threat and Danny Luna walked up and said they wanted to be in the picture again. They just lost last week, so why the fuck would they be in it? Slamovich and Threat got into a shoving match, and it was announced that they'd be facing each other tonight. And then Alan Angels was with Josh Alexander on the first episode of the Soundcheck. This was tough to watch. I think people liked this, and I think some people are entertained by Alan Angels, but he hasn't gotten me yet. So maybe other people like him. I'm not there yet with this. Maybe he can win me over, but I'm just not there yet. Angels talked about how Alexander had to squash some bugs to get to the top of the business. Alexander said that it wasn't about nefarious means, but working hard to get your shots. Angel said that Alexander didn't give credit to people who he should have, and he knew who he was talking about. Alexander said he didn't know what he was talking about, and Angel said that Alexander was not being a good example to his family. And at this point, Alexander walked out. I don't know who Alan Angels is talking about. I didn't get. Is he talking about Ethan Page? I don't know. I don't know who he's talking about. That none of it made sense, and it didn't make sense that Alexander didn't slap the piss out of him. So I don't know. Like, it just didn't work for me. It worked for other people. It just didn't work for me. Brian Myers defeated Kevin Knight. I thought this was a pretty decent match. Kevin Knight's really good. Brian Myers is a good worker, and when someone else is really good, Myers can have a pretty good match with them. This isn't one of those you need to go out of your way to watch, but Kevin Knight can be a star, and I very much think that he's on excursion here. We're probably going to be seeing him a lot over the next year, kind of like Uemura. And he's going to probably lose every match. But look, if this kid's on excursion, I think they need to do something with him, and they need to push this kid. Like, don't just do the normal excursion stuff to where, you just make him lose every week and treat him like a geek. Like, this guy could be a star one day. Be better than that. But yeah, he got a chance to show off what he does best. He looked good, but he ended up losing. So Alicia and Eddie Edwards came down to the ring after the match. It looked to be ready to lay a beat down on Knight, but Kushida, so that's Knight's tag team partner in New Japan, Kushida came down and scared them off, basically. And then Chris Sabin was with Gia Miller talking about Mustafa Ali, indicating he was coming for the TNA X Division Championship. As Sabin was talking about how he knew who Ali was, Mustafa Ali's political ad started playing on the TV with clips of Sabin getting beaten down in the ring as Ali delivered a monologue about how he was going to bring something new to TNA to take out Sabin. Yeah, and that looks like the match, and I'm with it. Ali's one of those faces. He's a WWE fired, but I think he's got momentum right now, and people want to see him, and they want to see him on television. I think this was a good move. Doesn't look like he signed, so I think this is one of those like, hey, we get him in for 4 to 6 months. He wins the X Division title and then drops it off, and then we don't see him again. Jason Hotch and John Schuyler came up laughing, and Saban said if they were so confident he could face Schuyler. This thing with Hotch and Schuyler was so stupid. It's such a lazy way to book matches. It's like I was like, there's nothing interesting about that. Nobody cares about Saban versus fucking Schuyler, loser. Next, Frankie Kazarian hits the ring, and he said that fans were not going to like his explanation on why he turned on Eric Young, but that he is the reason TNA exists today. He was the one in the video. He dug TNA out of the lake of reincarnation, and then he was done giving, and he was going to start taking. He said he'd been overlooked and that it had to stop now. And he had zero desire to be the hero to the people. So he was going to become the monster he needed to be to succeed. I like heel Frankie. I think he's good. I like this guy. I like him as a babyface too, but I think it ran its course. And so now it was time for a change. And I like this heel character, and I like that they're going to go with Eric Young and Frankie, maybe at No Surrender. I like that match. And then the System was celebrating backstage, and Alex Shelley broke up the party to challenge Moose for a rematch to his TNA World Championship. Shelley said that he would be fighting Moose in No Surrender, but could go tonight if Moose wanted to, and Moose rejected it. Yeah, it's a very, like I said, basic paint by numbers type of matchmaking. Kind of lazy, to be honest with you. I'd like to see somebody fresh, but look, Trinity just had her rematch clause, so this is just something that they do. So, they probably could have just done it on TV and got somebody else in there for No Surrender, but they needed matches for No Surrender, and I think they think this is a big match, and I just don't agree. It might be good, but who cares? Okay, a hype video aired for Ash by Elegance. Man, she's not winning me over yet. We'll see what she looks like when she comes to the ring. Next we go, Diener came down to the ring looking distressed. He said that he had to admit the design was done now, and some fans gave a dramatic and sarcastic no, which was pretty funny. Diener said he was wrong when he thought he could resurrect Violent by Design, and that if something was dead, it could never come back to life. Of course, he's forgetting the fact that he murdered Eric Young, and Eric Young came back to life to beat him. But when he said that, this resulted in PCO's scientists. So he's getting wheeled out by a bunch of guys in white lab coats and white hoods, and they electrocuted him. He did his entrance, and he just comes down the ring. He beat the shit out of Diener. Hit the PCO assault for the win. And then Big Con ran down. He took out PCO. He also laid out Diener. So this is the beginning of a push for Big Con. And I think we're getting Con versus PCO at No Surrender. And they're going to have bells and whistles, and PCO is going to do crazy shit. That's going to get people talking. But I don't think that it's going to work. Khan hit a choke slam on PCO, and before doing the Iron Claw on PCO, attempting to squeeze the life out of him. Yeah. So I don't know about this. I think honestly they should fire Khan. like there's nothing good about him. Like I don't know. I just not interesting. AJ Francis walked up to, so this was actually pretty funny, by the way. AJ Francis walked up to Rich Swann, and Francis offered to manage Swann again, addressing Swann losing to Hendry on Explosion. Nobody saw that fucking match, but okay. Swann said that whatever Francis was selling, he wasn't buying. Rhino then walked by, and Francis asked him if he needed help with Crazy Steve. Rhino said, fuck off, before walking away. I thought that was fantastic. That had me rolling. The look on Francis' face was pretty funny when that happened. Francis then said, see, this is why rhinos are going extinct. You can't trust them, which is pretty funny. Man, I don't want people to like clip this and accuse me of complimenting AJ Francis, but this segment was pretty funny. And honestly, some of the stuff he's doing is kind of funny. So, yeah. So I might get banned from my own Brace for Impact chat for saying that, but yeah. Hold on, we got some folks. We got somebody in the chat. So Nonzo says Moose Shelley 2 off the bat is one of the main reasons why I hate rematch clauses. Yeah. And then Dobby says if they turn Swann heel and have Dawes as manager, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that too. It looks weird because Francis is so big, but he's kind of playing a goofball character like an idiot. But my original idea for him was to play kind of more of a Suge Knight character. And if you guys are familiar with Suge Knight, he was He was head of Death Row Records back in the day, and very like he's kind of an evil monster. I think he's still in prison. And Dobby also says 1 month a push as a monster to give PCO a win over another big man. Yeah, I think this is what this is. Hopefully it doesn't extend too much longer. And then Jordan Grace talked about her experience at the Royal Rumble. This is a very good video, and they showed the extended thing on on TNA's Twitter. And they showed footage of Grace on her phone, which is the first time I think I've ever recalled WWE footage being aired on TNA. No, TNA had the footage for Mickie James in the Royal Rumble 2 years ago, and then they also used WWE footage when they inducted Shamrock into the Hall of Fame. So they've been working together for with stuff like this for a long time. They showed the stadium and Grace walking around backstage and had actual footage of the Rumble itself with Michael Cole and Corey Graves talking about how she beat Naomi for the Knockouts Championship. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. At first I was like, this is kind of weird that Jordan Grace is on TNA television talking about the biggest moment in her life is being on WWE. And I was like, man, that makes TNA look bad. But I was like, you know what? It doesn't. It's just reality. It really is. She's in Orlando in front of 250, 300 people, and she got to be in a baseball stadium in front of 50,000 people. Of course, that's the biggest moment in her career. We just have to be honest about where TNA is, and TNA just kind of acknowledges it. And I think I'm okay with that. I don't think that's a big deal. Slamovich with Killer Kelly defeated Jody Threat. Quick little match. Slamovich got the victory. They neutralized Jody Threat's push. So yeah, I don't. And Jody Threat cannot talk, by the way. There's something wrong with her. I don't know. Not much to it. System was shown backstage beating on Kushida. They didn't like him saving night early in the show. And then we go to the main event, which I thought was a very good main event. And this is the beginning of a best of 3 series with the Grizzly Young Vets and ABC. So Grizzly Young Vets get the victory here over ABC. They get the first one. And so I think they're going to go all 3, most likely culminating in No Surrender. And if that's what they do, I think I'm into it. We'll go to the end here. All 4 men faced off in the middle and started brawling, with both teams hitting double team moves and helping their own partners dodge and counter attacks. Drake smashed Bay into the steps after Bay hit a suicide dive to the floor. Austin hit a Fosbury flop to the floor, but the GYV were able to hit the Grit Your Teeth. So that's that double code breaker. Back in the ring after clotheslining Austin with a scarf. Good stuff. I thought this was a solid episode of Impact, but it's not like a show that I think everybody needs to go out of the way to watch. If you just want to watch a good match, I think the main event is a good match to watch. I think the best of 3 series is going to be pretty cool, and it's going to be pretty interesting. So I dug it, but it's like of the 3 episodes of TNA Impact, this was like 3rd of 3 on my list of interesting and good episodes, despite the fact that I thought the main event was very good. So good stuff. I'll be back here on Brace for Impact next week. But now, and so sorry if you're one of those freeloaders that's watching this on delay on YouTube. Please consider becoming a patron. Head to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. You could be live interacting with me on a Saturday morning, just like Gerard and Nonzo and Dobby and some of the other folks like to pop in the chat. You also get the audio. If you're only an audio person, you can get it right to your podcast feed immediately on Saturday. Or you can wait till Monday and get the YouTube version and the YouTube version only. Completely up to you, but if you would consider it, I'd greatly appreciate it. And we got tons of content coming out all the time. And so please consider supporting the show. It's how we are able to keep the lights on. So patreon.com/the Mike and JD show. Also, if you're watching this, please give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you like the show. Drop a comment. It helps the algorithm. It tells people that what you're watching, and it sends a signal out there to everybody else that's currently watching stuff on YouTube that, hey, there's something going on over here on the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. So I would greatly appreciate that. And now it's time for me to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about Cody Rhodes. And I switched over to the Overtime logo. And Gerard was in the chat earlier, and he brought this up. He said, PW Insider saying Cody versus Rock and Roman at SummerSlam to unify both world titles again. That's PW Insider, so we'll see where that goes. But so last night on SmackDown, Cody Rhodes came out to confront Roman Reigns, and basically he was going to make his decision whether or not he was going to face Seth at WrestleMania or he's going to face Roman at WrestleMania. And by now, I'm sure you guys have all heard and have all read or seen the clip. You know, he said that he's going to be challenging Roman for that title eventually, but it won't be at WrestleMania. And he then introduced The Rock, and The Rock comes out, and the show goes off the air. The Rock completely cuckolded Cody Rhodes. And I do have a quote from Dave Meltzer from his message board that I said, this is from Dave on the message board in regards to the situation. And Dave will probably be on Wrestling Observer Radio later, but he said, Dwayne pushed super hard for it. Read last week's issue and this week's. The card changed when Punk and Brock were all out and all the dominoes fell. Dwayne already wanted it, and they felt they needed it now as well. They felt it was better to change the news flow away from Vince. And boy, I have not seen anybody talk about Vince this morning. They're all talking about Rock and Cody, and people are pissed. Cody was the plan. Dwayne was going to face him later, maybe in next year's Mania, maybe Saudi. Shit happens with Vince and Punk. The Vince thing ends up worse than they thought, and they changed the plan. I literally didn't know until yesterday that it could change. And then I was told it's under lock, but but 100% it was Punk versus Seth and Cody versus Reigns until Punk got hurt. That's pretty crazy. So essentially, because of the Vince news and Brock being off WrestleMania and Cody and CM Punk being off WrestleMania, The Rock alphaed his way back in and pushed Cody out of the main event, and now he's going to get it. And he's going to get the main event world heavyweight title match against Roman Reigns night 2 at WrestleMania. Cody is not. and the WWE universe is not happy about this. Dobby says 200,000 plus dislikes on the video. I actually think they pulled the YouTube video down, Dobby. Maybe you can look at that, but I'm pretty sure they pulled the YouTube video down because it got such a negative reaction. This is this is pretty crazy. Like, look, like what match am I most interested in? It's The Rock versus Roman Reigns. I'm also 40, and I grew up with The Rock, and I love The Rock. I like all his movies. I like when he wrestles. I know, look, he's not a slap the thigh, kick, 1,000 kickouts, all that stuff, moonsault through a table, Canadian Destroyer. Yeah, I know he doesn't do those, but I like him. He's awesome, and Joe Lanza said it best on the flagship. The moment that The Rock re-enters the wrestling business, he's automatically the biggest star in wrestling, and he's going to get the biggest push. And he is. He's a bigger star than Roman Reigns, bigger than Cody. Rock and Roddy, the two biggest stars. This is the biggest possible match to make. Here's the problem. Cody won the Royal Rumble. And so now, without a very good explanation, they just pivoted over to The Rock versus Roman Reigns. If they wanted The Rock should have won the Royal Rumble, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. People would still be mad, but we wouldn't be having the discussion. And so that's the whole, like, the story reason for it is like Cody is just like stepping aside. And like I said, step aside, let the man go through, let the man. I wish I could play that. I'd get kicked off of YouTube. But Soul Coughing, Super Bonbon, great song. And so, yeah, I think I mean, I like the match, don't get me wrong, but man, the way that they got there just didn't make a ton of sense to me. And it makes Cody look like a cuckold babyface and killed his momentum. And that's the shitty part of it, because they actually had like Cody is like this super babyface, and they got Seth as a super babyface. CM Punk, who just got hurt, was a great babyface. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are great babyfaces, and all getting great push. They're all selling T-shirts, and they're selling tickets, and all this stuff. And now Punk gets hurt, and Seth gets hurt, and Cody Rhodes gets cuckolded. Like I don't know that there's like he's gonna be able to come back from that. Like he's talented enough to where he might. But I don't think whatever momentum he had going into this year, I think they cut the legs off from under him. I really do. They could have just done 2 main events with Roman. And honestly, they probably would have sold more tickets that way. Night 1, Cody versus Roman. Night 2, Rock versus Roman. Cody wins night 1, Roman wins night 2. I that's the move. Or instead of doing what they did, like Seth has been trying to tug on Cody's heartstrings and work him with these videos and with these promos he's been cutting about how his title is the Ric Flair title, is the Dusty Rhodes title, and that Roman's is Ultimate Warrior, Hogan, and Sid. And I thought those were very effective promos and very effective videos. It could have just been like, you know what, that worked. Yeah. He could have just said, you know what, Seth, you're right. Yeah. Fuck the Roman Reigns title. Like that would have made more sense as opposed to, no, your manipulation didn't work, Seth. I still want Roman, but I'm going to let Rock have my spot. It makes no sense. It would be like, it'd be like the 49ers winning the NFC Championship game and be like, yeah, you know what? We won this match because Dan Campbell's an idiot. That's actually very true. Go Niners, by the way. It's like, we won the NFC Championship game because Dan Campbell was such an idiot, but those players deserve more. So what we're going to do is we're going to step aside and we're going to let the Lions have this shot. And we will just take on the Chiefs in opening day in 2024. That's what we're going to do. Like that's what that was. Now people are coming at me saying The Rock's too old. No, he's not. Like he's The Rock. Right? If you get The Rock, you put him in like the biggest match possible. Every other story doesn't matter. And you know what? This whole bloodline story has been about Roman and The Rock, and we're finally going to get the culmination of it. And I'm excited for I'm very interested in that. But they could do it a better way. they didn't have to do it the way that they did it, and the way that they did it just didn't make sense. And they essentially killed their top babyface. That's the thing. But okay. Let me get Dobby's in the chat. He says it could get booed like Goldberg versus The Rock. I don't think so. I think The Rock transcends Goldberg and Brock. I just don't see it. The fan base wants Cody. Nobody wants a retired Rock to get a run from a 3.5-year title reign. And nobody wants to see Roman continue on champions fighting match. I think you're wrong about people don't want to see The Rock. I think they do. I think they're just mad that Cody didn't get his shot. And that was after they had Roman completely bury the other. Yeah. And so thank you for bringing that up, Dobby. Yeah. Like Roman accurately buried Seth's bronze title, the consolation prize. Because Roman had the unified title, and because nobody could beat him, they created a new one, right? And he buried it. So now there's I know that they can change people's minds, but in my eyes, there's no reason to watch Seth Rollins defend his title after getting buried. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then he said, age isn't the issue. The issue is he sucks wind after one spine buster. Yeah, he's going to have to get himself into better shape. But they'll have, it's going to be a Roman Reigns match. It's not going to be a 5-star classic. But you're going to get The Rock in the ring. And I think that's going to get more eyeballs than anything possible. When you get The Rock, you put him in the ring because he's the biggest star. He's everything that TKO wants, and he's also on the board of directors now, and he's gonna generate the most eyeballs, and that's what those people care about. I am far more interested in Rock versus Roman than I am Cody versus Roman. But if now I'm not interested in Cody at all because of what he just did. He just stepped aside and let The Rock have a spot. That was so weak. It was so weak. Now what do they do with Cody? So do they do Cody versus Seth now? Like they just totally diminish the Seth title. That doesn't make any sense. But I think that's the only move they go to. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna do a match at Saudi, but Gerard just said PW Insider's reporting that they're gonna unify the title. So I'm thinking what they do is Cody versus Seth, and Seth wins, and then they do Cody versus Seth, and not Seth wins. Cody versus Seth, night 1. Cody wins. Roman defeats The Rock, night 2. And then what Gerard was saying, according to PW Insider, they unify the belts, which is so weak. We've already unified the belts, but it looks like they're going to do a unification match at SummerSlam. to eventually have Cody finish his never-ending story. We'll bring in Falcor, we'll bring in Atreyu. Shout out Chad Gilbert, Newfound Glory guitarist, battling cancer. He got a shout out from CM Punk on Raw on Monday. Good for it. So the reason why I bring up Newfound Glory is because they did a really good cover of Never Ending Story. And again, I would play that right now, but I would get kicked off of YouTube. So, but this is it's a big victory for WWE to get The Rock in the main versus Roman in the main event of WrestleMania, but they really fucked up by killing Cody's momentum. They did, because now they're down a babyface, and The Rock's only going to be around for one night. He's not going to be around for an extended period of time. So they sacrificed Cody. Well, Cody's going to be able to do the rest of the year to get that one night pop for The Rock, because of the way they handled it. It's wild. And then we'll end on this. Dobby brings up a good point. So why would anybody believe that Cody's actually going to win at SummerSlam when they've already pulled the rug out twice at Mania? Yeah, they pulled the rug twice. They pulled the rug out from everybody whenever he wrestled Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle too, right? And then they pulled the rug out whenever everybody thought he was going to, when Sami Zayn was going to win in Montreal last year. Like, this is like an ongoing thing, but I think that's the storyline that they're telling. And then when he does eventually lose, that's supposed to be the big moment. So people are going to go into it not believe, and that's going to be the difficult part. Is, are people going to stick around that long to want to watch the storyline play out? Are they going to have that kind of patience? I don't know. It's going to be crazy. So sorry for you TNA fans that are only here for TNA talk. But this is my show. I can talk about whatever I want. And I just had to get this Cody stuff off my chest because I watched SmackDown this morning, right before we recorded. So, and this is like, taking over the news cycle. But the Vince stuff is coming back, and when more stuff breaks, I'll hit up a Patreon and do a breaking news audio, or I'll hit up YouTube and do some breaking news there. But we will continue covering that story too. But I thought this was important enough to talk about. I do appreciate everybody being in the chat tonight. Thank you, Dobby. Thank you, Nanza. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you all the Patreon subscribers for supporting the show. Patreon.com/The Mike and JD Show. Guys, that's going to do it for me this week on, let me go back to my Brace for Impact. That's going to do it for me on Brace for Impact this week. Thank you for being here. We'll be back next Saturday morning. And until next time, mahalo.